Welcome to True Talk on WMNF 88.5 with Ahmed and Samar. Assalamu alaikum. This is Ahmed Bedier, and my co-host Samar Jarrah is with me today. We're unpacking a whirlwind week of headlines that shape our world, especially the Middle East. First, I guess the UN Security Council just approved President Trump's new road to peace and the peace board, which Trump is saying is going to change everything about the Middle East and the Israel-Palestine conflict, but somehow without a single Palestinian at the table. So it's being decided without the Palestinians on board. Samar and I are going to discuss that. And also, speaking of political theater, the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman received the full red carpet treatment at the White House. He might still be in town. They had so many events. A lot of symbolism, a lot of money, power was on display. Where is that going to lead to? We'll also talk about the Epstein, I don't know, maybe someone and I will also have time to talk about the Epstein files and are they going to actually be released? And is there a connection to Israel? And finally, something really disturbing happened here closer to home. Muslim students on the campus of USF were assaulted this week while they were holding a morning prayer service. But it doesn't seem like USF, the University of South Florida, is taking it as seriously as they should. That and more. Maybe we'll have time for your phone calls as well. This is True Talk on WMNF. We'll be right back.
عايش بالناس غريبة مش عارف وكري وين الو 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 يا عمري وينك الو يا شبابي وينك الو يا الغالي وين الو الو سلم لي عالحبيبة عايش بالناس غريبة مش عارف وكري وين الو يا حبيبتي نعرف اللي طالت غيبتي الأيام ضحكوا على شيبتي وشيبة ولا تشيبة ما حبوا طيبتي ناس تستنى في خيبتي والأرنبة طلعت ذيبتي وشوفنا منهم خيبة قالوا يا الغالية شلز شباب على إيطاليا لبحر وامواج والعالية وغرقين وغرقات وحمام وجالية ذات يميني وشمالية وفكري كان في المالية الوحش كبر يا الأخوات الو 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 يا عمري وينك الو يا شبابي وينك الو يا الغالي وينك.
We're back with True Talk and Samar and I. Again, this is Ahmed Bedier. Samar, where do you want to start? So much has happened. First, actually, I wanted to you know about this update, maybe our listeners will not. A couple of weeks ago, we had the wife of Sami Hamdi on the show because he was being detained in California with a lot of allegations. He has been released since then, which is good news. So were you surprised that he was released?
Let me begin by commenting on the music you play. But
Yeah.
I just found out why you like him.
Why?
First time I see him, he looks like you.
Oh,
Oh
I
my
don't think
God.
it's because the looks. I don't. Does he look
No,
like
no,
me?
oh my God. For a split second, I said, why is Ahmed wearing glasses to the show and singing? Now I know. But
You're such an
anyway,
exaggerator. Well, I like the song
it's
itself. I mean, he's a Tunisian, kind of, I guess this would be considered Tunisian rap. And what is he saying? Allo, allo, what does that mean?
hello, like when you make a phone call, hello,
And
hello,
then
hello
who is he calling?
is love, I think. Are
No, he's
you?
actually, I think, no, if you listen to allo, allo, allo ya umri وينك, allo ya shababi وينك, allo ya ghali وينك. I guess he's kind of talking to his past or like himself. Ya umri, how do you say umri? Like my life. I guess it could be both. It could be, sometimes people call the person they like Omri, but I think he's talking to his like, oh, where did my life go? Where did my shababi, my youth, where are you? Anyway, I think he's kind of reflecting on his life. Hello,
So
hello.
first time I know that he looks exactly like
And
you.
he does not look like me. Actually, that would be kind of fly. He's a good looking guy.
So
So
maybe 20 years ago and 20 pounds ago.
that's true. Okay, maybe. Yeah, maybe in my
But
youth. Actually, so maybe that's why it's bringing nostalgia for me, and that's why I
yeah,
like the song.
where is your shabab? Where is your youth?
Yeah, it's gone. I spent it, being on the show with you here.
Yes, for 22 years, my God.
That's crazy.
I know. It's been a long lifetime. I've been here 36 years, and 22 of it is on tour.
36 years alive or 36 years in America?
36 years in America. No, I
Okay.
wait.
You came as a child, if I recall.
Yeah, maybe 3 years old. Anyways, Ahmed, I'm so happy because actually, when I tried to get the contact to talk with Sami Hamdi, the British journalist who was touring the USA, and it's not the first time that he does that. I contacted his father, who happens to be a Tunisian journalist in England, and he said, "Why don't you talk to his wife? I'll send you her contact." So he sent me her number, and she immediately agreed to the interview. And our listeners listened to how eloquent and compassionate she was. So when at night, our night, when there was the news from CARE in California, I think that he's going to be released, that he and the government reached an agreement where he's not incriminated in any shape or form, and that he will agree to what he agreed to 18 years earlier from his arrest, that he will leave to England. So I sent her the message at night, and I think she saw it. So, out of gratitude, Ahmed, she contacted me yesterday, and she said, if you would like to talk to my husband, maybe you and Ahmed are interested, and we can arrange for an interview." Interesting, Ahmed, that he was with Wolf Blitzer, I think, a few days ago, and he said, from the
I
first
saw that.
yeah, from the first moment, they told him that you violated the visa, which they revoked on the spot. So he had few seconds of violating his visa, and he said, "Fine, I'll get on a plane
Yeah.
to England." And they said no. And
No, they said that's not how we do it or something like that.
yeah,
But they do that. Many times people that are like that they cancel their visa, they just put them on the next flight and send them back. So again, it's kind of like he had entered maybe a week earlier and entered with a visa. So this is not a matter of like overstaying the visa. He had a valid 10-year visa that allows you to come in and out. And every time you come in, usually they give you about 6 months. Like he could be in the country for an entire 6 months. He had been for maybe a week or less than a week. And he offered, hey, great, okay, I live in London, let me go back home. And they wouldn't let him go. And they kept him for 2 months. And hopefully we can have him back on to kind of tell the
for
story more in detail.
18 days, not 2 months. They
I
kept
mean, I'm
him.
sorry, I meant 2 weeks, but it's 18 days, yeah. But
Yeah.
other people, he said that he's met in there, have been in there for months. And he
Yeah.
keeps talking about them because I saw a couple of interviews. He's been speaking about them that, he got out quickly because of the media pressure and the public pressure and the lawyers, but others don't have the same resources. And they're just languishing in there. And one thing I think he pointed out is that one of the tactics is that basically he believes that ICE is kind of running out the clock or just, delaying things, using delay tactics so people give up. So instead of like, fighting and going to court and trying to, defeat them, they just keep delaying and postponing and doing extensions where eventually, I mean, ordinary people don't want to spend their life in prison or in a, detention center. And then because a lot of times when they actually go in front of a judge, the judge will release them. And this is what happened with Sammy. The judge, Sami Hamdi, he didn't buy whatever the government was saying because there are all these accusations You remember the DHS? They posted something like, "We're not going to allow people who support terrorism
Yeah.
and terrorist sympathizers in our country who have no obligation." They didn't bring any of that up in court. It's like they say stuff, what they say publicly, but in court, the judge was not, there was no evidence of any of that. The only evidence that, or anything, is what, he had been going around speaking, and he was speaking about Israel. And in fact, in the hearing, the his lawyers basically said he has the right to free speech, and the government lawyer for DHS said no, he doesn't. Like, he's not a citizen, so he's not afforded the constitutional right of freedom of speech. And the judge said no, he does, because the law does say even if you're a visitor, you have a right to free speech. The Constitution is not just, it doesn't say just for citizens. That's the law of the United States. It's not like you have two different laws in the country. Obviously you can't participate in an election. Yeah, that's a law, but you have free speech. And if you gave him a visa to enter, he has safe passage. You can't just revoke it a little bit before you go, and without letting him know, and then just go and detain him, and just kind of like as a surprise situation.
Plus, I think, Ahmed, most of the people who were in prison that he met were not criminals or have a criminal background or have violations. They're just been picked up. So I really don't know, is the government just interested in getting rid of foreigners, quote unquote, or non-born American people? Because none of these, I can't be accurate and say none, but many of them, they have no idea why they are there, just like Hamdi, like Sammy. Like, he had no idea why he was there for 18
I mean,
days.
he had a suspicion that, it's because he's speaking out against Israel.
Yeah, but
And
that is not.
he's not, he's basically saying that why is the United States, why are these politicians putting the interest of Israel before themselves? He was talking about, I think his last interviews was like, there are two type of politicians in America, the Israel first and the America first. And which side are you on? And I guess they didn't like that.
Yes, they cannot like it and they can be angry at it, but there is no violation of law, no
Yeah,
criminal.
exactly. There's no violation. That if they could do that to him, they could eventually do that to you and I. We criticize Israel all the time, and then of course, they try to make accusations. Oh, it's anti-Semitism. And if you're new to our show, there's a huge difference for us, for Samar and I. We've been saying this for 20 years, between the political Zionist movement and the Jewish religion, and they're not one and the same. Now, some people on the Zionist side, pro-Israel individuals, will try to conflate and say, no, they're one and the same. No, absolutely not. Zionism has been around for what, 150 years, 125 years. Judaism has been, thousands of years. And not everybody that's Jewish is a Zionist. And in fact, not everybody that's Zionist is even Jewish. You have a lot of people that are Christian Zionists that have bought into this idea that somehow, in order to be a good Christian, you have to support the state of Israel, because they conflate and they've interpreted these verses in the Bible where God makes a covenant with Abraham and says, I will bless, your nation. And then somehow they've changed that to mean I will bless Israel, and and I will bless those who bless Israel, meaning the nation state. That's not what the, Jewish historians and religious historians and theologians, they know, and they say that covenant, if you believe in the Bible, that covenant that's in the Torah is between God and Abraham. There was no nation state of Israel that even precedes the children of Israel. And he said, your descendants. And guess what? You and I know that the descendants of Abraham include the Jewish, the children of Israel, but also the children of Ishmael, who ended up being in Arabia, and Muslims are descendants of that and following that. So meaning that he's going to, if you want to take it and believe it, then that means God is saying, I'm going to, bless the children of Abraham, and he's known as the father of the prophets, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, meaning he will bless all of them, not just the children of Israel. But somehow they, you know, exploit that and make it like, oh, God promised us this land 3,000 years ago. No, he didn't. He promised to bless, the descendants of Abraham, and that includes the Muslims.
Not only that, I'm looking now at the internet, at the information encyclopedia. He had 8 sons. Some people say 11. I mean, I'm talking about Prophet
Who? Which prophet?
Abraham.
Oh, Abraham? I thought mainly, what I know was the Isaac and or Ishmael, and then Isaac. Those are the 2 main sons he had. He didn't have any children for a long time because his wife Sarah, his first and wife Sarah, could not have any children, and he didn't have any children. And he eventually, God gave him permission, and even Sarah agreed at the time that he will marry Hagar, who was a princess in Egypt that had been imprisoned by the Pharaoh there, and she was assigned to be like the help or assistant of Sarah when Sarah was captured by the Pharaoh. It's like a long story that's in the Bible. It's also in the Muslim tradition. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
So I think, and then they had Ishmael and then Isaac.
Yeah, they had, actually, I'm looking at the Bible here, Genesis 16 from 1 to 4. Ishmael was Hagar's son, and then he had the second son, Isaac, through Sarah, his wife, and that's Genesis 21. And then after Sarah died, Abraham had 6 sons through Keturah. Another concubine, Zimran, Joksan. Okay, this is all in the Bible, Genesis. So.
Okay, but here's a big difference. I mean, the main 2 sons that the prophethood stemmed from is Ishmael and Isaac. Isaac had Jacob, and then Jacob had the 12 children, including Joseph, and peace be upon them all. And that's where the 12 tribes of Israel come from, because Jacob's other name was also Israel. So when they talk about the children of Israel, they mean the children of Jacob. However, before Isaac came along, 13 years before that, Ishmael was born. And this is a big disagreement between, I guess, Jewish theologians and Muslims, because from the Jewish side and even the Christian side, they don't consider Hagar as a legitimate wife of Abraham. Because when you often point out and say, well, God made this covenant with Abraham, that includes his firstborn, Ishmael, Ismail in Arabic. And you're like, no, because that Ishmael is not a legitimate son, as if he's somehow a bastard, illegitimate, that, Abraham married this woman or had a child with this woman named Hagar out of wedlock, so it doesn't count. How can you believe in Abraham and say that he's going to do something like that? No, he married her. She was a legitimate wife, and that's his first son, Ishmael. So the covenant applies to Ishmael and Isaac.
Or sometimes I had it one time being told, you're the descendants of maids. And I was like, what the heck?
Who said that to you?
In a lecture.
Yeah, but who? What was their background? Was it
I didn't ask
Christian person?
Yeah,
so that's where they get this idea. They're like, you're a descendant of the maid, which is basically
that make me like what? And then I think, and then one time a slave, and okay, this is the 21st century. Since when, like you're as if they are belittling what I was saying. Because I am the descendant of a maid or a slave, which doesn't make any sense after 3, 4, 5,000 years to be guilty.
But according to them, those people that have these racist, supremacist views, you are subclass. You are the.
I didn't even understand it then, because I think it was the first time I heard it.
Right.
that they don't consider Hagar legitimate. But the whole point, Ahmed, did they have notary public? I mean, how were marriages conducted then? I mean, do people even know? Like,
Yeah, but I mean,
they have a wedding?
but it's yes. Well, I mean, yeah. Sarcastically, that's the case, but this is the problem all along, that they try to not acknowledge Hagar as, because if they do, then that covenant doesn't just apply to their tribe. This covenant also applies to Arabs and the descendants of Ishmael and Muhammad and the Arabs. And for centuries, for millennials, they're trying to deny and say, no, we are God's chosen people. It's only us and no one else. And this, goes across. And this is I'm not saying that all Jewish people have this mentality, but the ones that do, that have this type of supremacy, which I believe also exists in Zionism. I mean, you can just read their writings, that they believe that's the belief. So when it comes to the theology, they look down on the descendants of Ishmael. And that's one of the reasons why they rejected Muhammad, because they think he is, a descendant of the slave woman, Hagar, or this maid. And no way that God would choose someone like that to be a prophet and a messenger and to be like their Messiah or something of that nature. But a lot of Jewish people actually did convert. And if you look at a lot of the historians in Israel today, that have done DNA research and others, many of them actually say that the real children of Israel are today's Palestinians who are descendants of the tribes of Israel, and they became Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
So many of the people that are there today, yes, okay, the original, it's not the ones that migrated from Europe and from Russia and from Germany and from Europe, what's called the Ashkenazi Jewish community. The original Semites are the ones that are from that area, that look brown, that they're tan, they're from Arabia, more of the Sephardic and Mizrahi Jewish communities. Those are the original Semites, not the white Caucasians that converted in Russia and Poland and Ukraine and Germany, that came there after World War II, or even, before then. And this whole Zionism project actually started there. So it's all you have to do is just look at the history. And this is nothing to say that this is against Judaism. Judaism existed before Zionism by thousands of years.
That's why, Ahmed, when we were young and we used to, my grandmother on my mom's side used to visit us in Kuwait. And when we go out, she would, she wasn't religious, but when they go out, when we go out, she would put kind of a tiny white scarf, very similar to what Amish women would put. And so we would ask her, and we're talking in the late 1970s, I think. And we would ask her, why are you putting this? And she said, this is how women in Gaza, she was from Gaza, would wear it. So me and her best friend, I think she would say Marguerite, Margaret, but she would say Marguerite and Rosa. So one was Jewish, her best friend Jewish, her best friend Christian, and my grandmother the Muslim. And she said, when the three of us go out, this is how we go out in the streets. It doesn't matter. We don't put it because we are Muslim or Christian or Jewish, but that's how women go out. And because in the three religions, we are supposed to cover our hair if we go to a house of worship. So when my grandmother was talking about Marguerite and Rosa, she's talking about like in such harmony. But I think, going back to what you said, because my grandmother probably was Jewish, and then her family became a Christian and then became Muslim. So when people say that the Palestinians, whether Jews or Christian or Muslim, coexisted perfectly in that land, I understand why, because they're just from the same pot, but different religions. And of course, there are, by the way, other religions in Palestine and sects That's I didn't know, but yes, they do exist. For instance,
Yeah, like the Druze community, right?
yeah. And they all coexisted, and all of their women, even the Druze women, covered and wore the same dresses.
That
Uh,
was the culture. That was the
yeah.
culture. They lived in harmony. They don't, and that's why it was funny when Trump traveled to the Middle East and, to sign this peace agreement and saying, oh, this has been going on for thousands of years, this violence and war. No, it hasn't. It has not.
Yeah.
In fact, these Jewish communities and even Christian communities have been protected in the Holy Lands by Muslims for over 1,000 years, protecting them when the Crusaders came and they were killing Christians and the local Christians in the Jewish communities. It was the Muslims that were defending them, and it wasn't until the Muslims took over Jerusalem and the Holy Lands that Jews were actually allowed to come back and return. So people, real historians knew, and the same story in Andalusia, in Muslim Spain, that Jewish communities, the Sephardic Jews, thrived under the Muslim leadership there for 700 years. And it wasn't until the Inquisitions that came, there was a wave of persecution by Spaniards and the Catholic Church where they killed and kicked out Muslims and Jews from the land there. But before that, they were protected. So, and even as recent as World War II, as recent as the Nazi attacks and persecution of Jewish communities in Europe, Muslims in Europe were hiding and protecting Jewish communities. So these are all lies that are being spread today. A lot of it, unfortunately, by these Zionist organizations, many of whom are not actually religious at all. They're, atheists, and then they somehow claim that they have inherent right to that land. It's really unfortunate. So no one that's really, that's in their right mind can listen to your conversation and mine and say that, oh, we're somehow being anti-Semitic. You and I are Semites. We're not going to be against ourselves. And you can't say that we're anti-Jewish because we're differentiating between what is Jewish, what is the great religion of Judaism, which we actually have to respect, and we call them people of the book, and they're mentioned in the Quran, and Zionism, which is a political ideology that's a supremacist ideology that really, in my perspective, has nothing to do with Judaism, the original Judaism of the Torah, of the Old Testament, the religions of, and the way of, Jacob and, his children. I don't think they have anything in common with Zionism.
Are mentioned in the Quran way more than Muhammad, for instance.
Moses is, yeah.
I think 93 times. The Prophet is something like 5 times. But, you reminded me of something because you know how active I am on Twitter, and many Arabs in the Arab world are seeing what is happening in Dearborn, Michigan. And
Yeah, why don't you say it? Can you tell the listeners what happened in Dearborn?
All of a sudden, some provocateurs and a guy, his name is Jake Lang, who was one of the people incriminated during the January 6 events at the Congress. And I think he was in prison for 3 years and he was pardoned. And from what I am gathering in the past 2 days, he and another guy or two decided to go to Dearborn, Michigan, talk to the city council and say that you are taking over America, you are implementing Sharia law, and started screaming, Christ is king, Jesus is king, and then went to the street and tried to burn the Quran. And, there was police, and most of the police are originally Muslim and Arab from Dearborn. But anyways, so a guy jumps and snatched the Quran from him. So he realized that torching it is not going to be easy. So he started getting bacon, pieces of bacon, and slapping the Quran with it. So a journalist was trying to figure out what the heck is going on there. And he saw young boys, 14, 16, 18, different looks, but they obviously are saying we are Muslim. So these are young people, Ahmed, probably second or third generation. And they said, We would never do this to the Bible or the Torah. You
Yeah,
can
that's
say
true.
anything about us, but we would never, we respect the Torah and the Bible. We do not do these to these holy books. Why is he doing that? Why is he doing that? Why doesn't he respect our book the way we respect the book? So I think the journalist was confused because they don't know that how much we believe in the Adam and Eve and Abraham and Moses and Jacob and David and Solomon, and all these are our prophets, and we say after we invoke their name, what do we
Peace
say?
be upon them.
Peace be upon them.
Right. I mean, we revere all of these prophets, the same ones in the Bible, and it would actually be a sin for Muslims to desecrate the Torah, to mistreat it, to say anything hateful or attacks or insults to any of the prophets. You'll never find a Muslim attacking Moses. You'll never find a Muslim attacking Abraham or Jesus or anyone else. It would just, or desecrating. It's like a huge sin. The same way we look at Muhammad, peace be upon him, we have to revere the other prophets. So it's like there's no question for any of us. But however, you see that often, and I think, in a little bit after maybe you comment, we're going to talk about what happened at USF just 2 days ago, where they're trying, the insults that they were hurling, that these people that carried out this attack. So we're seeing this wave of attacks by provocateurs, instigators, protesters that are going into Muslim areas and Muslim spaces and threatening and demeaning and insulting. And I think a lot of it, they're trying to get some sort of violent reaction with their insults. So that way they say, oh, look, the Muslims are violent with these type of provocations.
The question is why now? I mean, it's not, sometimes these
I
things.
can tell you why. Yeah. Why?
Yeah,
What is your hypothesis?
before I'll let you say it, but let me tell you, usually these things, for instance, let's say Islamophobia, flares up whenever there is a quote unquote terrorist attack, whether in the US or outside. For instance, remember one time in California, there is a couple who walked into Christmas.
Right. San Bernardino.
Yeah, so okay, next day, third day, fourth day, if there is a threat to a mosque or some inflammatory statements about Islam, I can understand that because people are angry and they feel, I mean, I can understand it, but nothing is happening as far as I know. Why all of a sudden, since the ceasefire, you either have influencers that Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, met with, and then an investigative reporter that we had on this show realized, and through Haaretz, the Israeli leftist newspaper, that they are paid $7,000 for each tweet that they tweet or Instagram post. And then obviously this didn't work. And then they started going to churches in Southwest USA. And again, we interviewed Cleveland and talked about it on our show, where Israeli government allocated $145 million to try and influence churchgoers. Church leaders said, we do not know anything about this and we're not going to be approving it. All of a sudden, then Islam is taking over America. Sharia law is taking over America. What the heck is happening? Why?
I think my hypothesis is that, a number of factors happening. One of the main ones, and obviously because of a lot of reports, and our listeners can Google this to find out what are the major institutions and foundations that are funding and spending money on spreading Islamophobia, which we call the Islamophobia networks. These are groups that basically spread hatred and spread fear-mongering of Muslims and Islam as somehow a threat to the United States, that they're inherently violent and evil. It's not by some coincidence that that's kind of the feelings that a lot of Americans have. There's a lot of money that went into shaping Americans and Americans' perspectives negative perspectives and feelings towards Islam. And the majority of these are Zionist entities. I mean, this is, you could look up the Center for American Progress. They did a report called Fear Inc. Just Google that. There's also Fear Inc. 2, the second report. You can look at the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARES report on who's funding Islamophobia. Just Google who is funding the Islamophobia and the foundations, and over like $100 million or hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent on this. So now that post the genocide in Gaza, post the ceasefire, and now worldwide global opinion is against Israel. And for the first time in history in the United States, Americans' opinion on the state of Israel has gone down significantly. And more Americans today sympathize with the Palestinians than they do with the state of Israel. Again, this is not about religion. And this is raising the alarms, sounding the alarms in Tel Aviv, in the Netanyahu government, and they're shocked by this, and they're trying to reverse it as much as possible, as some of the programs that you had mentioned to try to target, churches, etc. And so people are taking advantage of this climate, like, wait a minute, people are becoming more sympathetic towards Muslims. And of course, there's a reaction to the historical win of somebody like Zoran Mamdani to be the first, mayor-elect Muslim in New York City, the largest capital, in America, and the global economic power. And the billionaires that have been spending money tried to defeat him and spread racist and Islamophobic tropes against him. That's bleeding throughout the country. And you see now these instigators. And it happened in Dearborn. It's no surprise that this same week, it also happened here in Tampa, it happened in Hollywood, Florida, it happened in Houston, Texas. These type of provocateurs are going into these spaces and trying to pick fights, trying to attack the religion with the hope to turn public opinion against the Muslims, because to distract from the agenda. Because in order for, like you and I know, in order to continue the wars in the Middle East, in order to continue funding the genocides in Gaza and bombing Middle Eastern countries, you have to demonize those people. And if the American public starts seeing these people as victims, that's not good. So whoever is funding, somebody is funding this for a political end. And I just wanted to segue, because we don't have a lot of time. We have another 15 minutes, but just this week on Tuesday, one of those attacks on Muslims happened right here in Tampa at the University of South Florida. And what happened, I spoke to the students that were impacted by this. It was a small group of people, I think 10 or 11 people. They were, it's a student group on campus, and they were doing a morning prayer. As you know, and some of our listeners may know this, Muslims have 5 daily prayers, one that's before sunrise at dawn, one around like noon, 1 o'clock, one in the afternoon, one at sunset, and one at night. That's not so strange. The Jewish community has 3 daily prayers, morning, middle of the day, and also at night. People pray, and praying is a good thing. So, and in a Muslim prayer, when we line up and we pray, what's different about our prayer, Samar, just for our listeners that don't know, once we engage in the prayer, it's like we're in a direct conversation with God, and we cannot exit the prayer until we actually say like salam, or give the greeting goodbye, which is assalamu alaikum, assalamu alaikum. During that period, if somebody walks in front of you, somebody tries to, if your phone rings, if somebody calls your name, if like you're somewhere, you can't like stop what you're doing. If somebody knocks on your door, rings the doorbell, you can't just stop and walk and open the door. You have to finish your prayer first, then proceed with what you're doing. Otherwise, you have to start all over. So these guys were praying as a group. They started their prayer, and this 3 or 4 people were turned on their live stream on YouTube, showed up at this place on USF campus at like 6 a.m., turned on their live stream, and it looked like from a distance at the beginning, like not knowing what's happening, that they're going to attack these people. And they sneak up on them, and they're talking to each other, like telling each other, the guys, the perpetrators, oh, did they start praying? Did they start praying? And then they kind of sneak up and rush towards them. Now, when Muslims are praying, they're all facing in one direction towards the holy city of Mecca. It's not that they worship the Kaaba there. That's just the direction that Muslims are united to pray towards, because that's the holiest mosque for us, or the holiest shrine for Muslims worldwide. All Muslims around the world, when they do their prayer, they face that direction. We're not worshiping the structure there. It's just a way to unify us. So they're coming up from behind them, from behind their back. So the people that are praying can't see who's coming up behind them. And they sneak up, and as soon as they bow down, to pray, they get in position, they stand in front of them, they bring this makeshift cardboard box that's painted in black, and to resemble to, like, as a sarcasm on the Kaaba, which is a holy sacred mosque in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, what is today Saudi Arabia. And they have written on it the message that says Kaaba 2.0 and Jesus is Lord in big writing. And this guy, who's a white guy, Caucasian, is dressed in a Muslim clothing, like this thobe. I don't want to say Muslim clothing. He's dressed in like Arabian clothing, this white robe. But on it, he has a big message, and written on his T-shirt, like that says Jesus is King or Jesus is Lord or something like that. And they start yelling and insulting and circling around. If you ever watch like a boot camp of soldiers, when soldiers go to boot camp and the officers there that are training them get in their face, they start yelling and screaming. You know that?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how they're behaving. They were getting that close, face to face, like in their face, pointing fingers, screaming at them, like super zoomed in. That's how close they are in their very personal space. Very threatening, intimidating. I was just like watching it. I was just nervous myself. Like, how can, and people may be surprised. Why aren't they reacting? Why aren't they running away? Because they're in their prayer. They can't leave. They can't just stop and just take off. And they took advantage of that. And I think these guys know this. And the whole time they're live streaming this, and people are watching and commenting in the live stream. And then they brought bacon. And as you know, people know that Muslims don't eat bacon, just like the Jewish community. It's against our religion. We don't eat pork products. And they're eating it, and they keep throwing it. Yeah.
Sorry, but it's mentioned in the Bible that we're not supposed to eat swine meat.
Yeah, it's in the Bible. And they waving it around, and they're like waving it in their face and saying, oh, this bacon is so good. They came prepared. And they kept, it was so
Well, all this is
shocking.
happening. No other students around, no police.
Because
no...
it's they were in a remote place. And I think they were actually, it's, how students, they do creative things. So they were doing it in a parking garage on the top ceiling, so they can have like open, open air. And they can, in an elevated place, so they could maybe see the sunrise afterwards or whatever. And then they have pancakes after their little, like, their prayer. And this is something they advertised on their Instagram and on social media. And that's, I think, how these guys are finding out about these events. They're stalking Muslim students groups on campuses to find out when their activities are. And they're showing up and disrupting and harassing and insulting. Because if you look at that same guy's YouTube channel, they've done this in Fort Lauderdale, they've done it in Dallas, they've done it in Houston, they've done it on multiple campuses. And it's the same template, and they try to provoke. And all of this is in the past, like, month or so. They try to provoke, they taunt, they intimidate. And if somebody just reacts, like pushes, imagine somebody having their finger right up to your nose. The natural thing is to, like, move their hand away. And then, oh, you assaulted me. And then they try to call the police and try to get that person, like, arrested or kicked off campus.
How did this end at USF? How did it?
It ended with just like, as soon as they finished the prayer, the kids, the young students, they just kept ignoring them until they started like insulting more. And then the kids started reacting, saying, what are you guys doing here? Leave us alone. And they kept saying, we have freedom of speech. This is freedom of speech. We can do what we want, and they're hiding behind this idea of freedom of speech. Sure, you have freedom of speech, but also in Florida, you can't go and intimidate and scare people like that in a threatening way. Those students were terrified. They didn't know if these guys have guns or weapons. They don't know how to react. And it's happened before that racist and anti-Muslim people have gone into mosques during prayers and shot and killed people. And these students were terrified. I mean, do you remember the church shooting in New Zealand, where a man went in during prayer time and started gunning down these individuals during prayer, killing over 50 people. And this is happening. No one was in sight as far as the police. There was no protection, and and maybe because they didn't know that they were going to be meeting there. But these guys had to come on campus, and the place that they were praying was in the middle in the heart of the campus.
So these
So they
students
had
are not
what?
Ahmed students at USF.
No, they're not. They're not even students. They're like grown men, like, 40, 50. They have gray, hair. Some of them maybe in their 30s. So they're not students. These people came from outside of Tampa to do this. And the fact that they could just go anywhere and do that, and they've done it in multiple states by now, I'm surprised. Why isn't the FBI going after them? They're doing it in multiple places. Imagine if these were Jewish students on campus doing their prayer and they were attacked this way. What would have been the reaction? Even you remember the whole Gaza thing where, Jewish students kept saying we feel unsafe, even though nobody was attacking them or doing anything remotely like this. And the USF and other universities mobilized like such a strong police force to try to keep protesters out. So it took them like 2 days for the police or USF to even issue a statement. And it wasn't until after there was actually an uproar and outrage that this was happening.
I did not hear about it actually, but I just saw images of it, and I'm glad you clarified what is going on. But I think USF should do something about it, Ahmed.
There is a press conference that's going to be held tomorrow because I don't think they're acting fast enough. I'm actually going to participate in it, where we, call on government officials. I mean, have you seen any government official? Have you seen the governor denounce this? Have you seen any of the attorney general or any of the people in our, politicians denounce it? No. And this sends the wrong message. And that's why these people can get away with this and they go attack, because somehow these were Muslim students. If people watch what unfolded, it's so disturbing. It makes you like you're so afraid. And you have these like peaceful, quiet, young people that are just praying. What is their, and these individuals that keep claiming they're acting in the name of Jesus and Jesus Christ is King. Obviously, there's nothing Christian about their behavior, but they're defending it. Where are the Christian pastors speaking out against this? Where, I'm
sure Ahmed, if they find out about it, because one of the interesting things that happened in Dearborn, Michigan, is one of the major leaders of the January 6th movement came out. He's a MAGA guy. He's a Christian guy. He still believes what they did in January 6th was a positive thing and that was the right thing to do. He actually went to a mosque in Dearborn and said, look, we do not approve of what is going on. This guy is not part of our movement. We kicked him out. We as American Christians would not desecrate the Quran. We would not be slapping it with bacon. This is not what we do. And he took a group of people, Ahmed, carrying the American flag and stood in front of this Jake Lang guy, who his sister happens to be in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, and who happens to post a picture of him praying at the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, but that's another story to talk about. So this American, I can't remember his name, of the movement of the January 6th, is demonstrating in front of him with friends of his, and they are bluntly saying, we are January 6 people, we are American, we are Christian, and we do not approve of this, and we think this is a provocation, and this is not something healthy for our country. I'm not sure if you have seen.
I know. I saw a guy, the person that's running for governor in Michigan. His name is Hudson, who actually was planning to be part of this rally in Dearborn against Islam. That was the whole thing. They're going to Dearborn because that's like, the most populated Muslim city in America, an Arab city in America. And they wanted to just go and provoke and say, oh, look, we have the right to do this. And most people said, they'll just ignore them. One of their leaders, a guy that's running for governor, his last name is Hudson. He actually was planning to lead this. And then he had a change of heart after visiting with Muslim leaders in Dearborn. They welcomed him, they treated him nicely, they explained some things, and he had like a complete 180 and said, I apologize. There's no Sharia in Dearborn that's happening. In fact, there's no Sharia being practiced in America. Because that's the whole thing that they're trying to, push out there now, that somehow there are these Sharia laws everywhere. And he said, I stand against this. And I guess his name is Jake Lang, in fact, ended up attacking the bus that's supposed to be for this candidate for governor. So it's not everybody that's within that movement that's on board with this. There's only just some elements that are instigating many of this. And
I think we
in
have
Texas, you saw Governor Abbott there issue this decree or proclamation declaring what he calls the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE as somehow designating them as a terrorist organization. A lot of people are just laughing at him, saying that's not within your power and it's meaningless. And Ted Cruz saying, "Oh, that's a great job. I'm going to try to do the same thing on the federal level." And people are pointing out, why are you guys all just, and you guys are Israel first politicians. Why don't you do things for the people in Texas instead of this kind of nonsense?
Why don't they fight the drug problem or
Homelessness, yeah, healthcare. They're
here?
focusing so much energy on just attacking Muslims and spreading this misinformation and lies that somehow Sharia laws in America. Muslims are like 1% of the American population. There's 300 million Americans. There may be 3 million Muslims. And they're trying to somehow say that these 1% is going to overcome and subjugate the rest of the 99%. Who are you guys kidding? This is like, it's so laughable, but people are buying into it. Churches are buying into it. And people are like terrified and scared that somehow Muslims are going to take over and do this. But I don't think they really believe that, because if they really believe Muslims are so violent, they wouldn't dare go around and try to do these stunts. You know what I mean? They know that Muslims are harmless and that they're vulnerable, marginalized community, and that's why they keep going after them.
Don't we have some emails that you want to read?
I mean, somebody did send an email to say that that they're Jewish and that they appreciate that. Thank you for clarifying that not all Jews are Zionists. And he is Jewish, but, apparently he's not Zionist. So before, when you used to say that, people are like, what? What's wrong with Zionist? Just go. It's not. That's one. It's just like saying you're MAGA. Not all Americans are MAGA. Not all Christians. But somehow they want to convince you that,
MAGA itself, Ahmed, is now going through a soul-searching a trip, thinking of, well, maybe this is really a genocide and we shouldn't be siding with the genocide. And of course, we didn't get a chance to talk about the Epstein files, but it is causing a rift inside MAGA, and it's like a hot pot for mixing so many issues at the same time. And also, I just wanted to mention, because I just saw this morning, remember the Parkland school massacre?
shooting. Yeah.
One of the students, the survivors, his name is Cameron Kasky, and he is running for a local election in Florida. And part of what he is saying is that he does not want to continue to be part of the colonial scheme of creating a greater Israel. If you asked me 5 years ago when we doing this show, there will be a young survivor of Parkland that will come, and that would be his platform, I would tell you, Ahmed, no. But things are really moving.
Things are changing, and you have politicians, as you know, that are now saying, I will not accept AIPAC money. AIPAC is working for the state of Israel, and they're rejecting AIPAC. AIPAC is freaking out that they've become toxic. Even there's some in the Republican Party and within the MAGA movement that are super against AIPAC. One of the most surprising of all is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who keeps going on about, not accepting AIPAC and why it's like dangerous for the United States. And the other person is Thomas Massey, who sponsored that bill and pushed that bill to release the Epstein files, which got eventually everybody came on board. And we have, we'll see if it actually gets released. My theory is, despite even Trump signing it, it's not going to get released anytime soon. If it does, it's going to be greatly redacted, or they're going to claim that it's because